One of the greatest gifts we can experience, I think, is to be around a small child who is exploring and discovering the world around them. They are simply in a state of awe. Watching them play in a puddle or dashing in and out of a warm rain for the first time fills one with giggles. Seeing them chase a butterfly or even watch a butterfly emerge from a cocoon is inspiring and humbling. Children are so wonderstruck, filled with joy and simple amazement. So I have to this morning share a moment of that childlike wonder that was sent to me in a video from our son. They had a huge hailstorm in Calgary a few weeks ago, and the youngest child, aged 4, heard the noise of ice hitting the window and the siding, and he was sure that it was popping corn outside. He laughed and he watched as the hail fell, covering the ground in white, and he was pretty sure that it was popcorn. So his older brother put on his bike helmet for protection and went out to see if it was actually popcorn on the ground. The amazing thing is that both of them were still joy-filled when the older returned with a bowl of ice pellets. They continued to laugh as they tasted this wonder. Being able to hold joy as new things are discovered is a childlike gift to be treasured. It is the witness of awe and amazement that our yearning hearts hold in discovering a selfless relationship with God. And as a congregation worshiping together, we cherish each other's experiences also. We are wonderfully childlike in these moments. Now, Jesus spoke about children twice in our reading this morning. The first time was as a wearisome description of people running around, aimless and lost, not seeing what was in front of their eyes. Much like the people Zechariah was trying to reach with his prophecies. Zechariah was speaking to a nation which was increasingly disillusioned that a victorious rescue had not come to them. The people were beginning to return from captivity in Babylon, and they had even been given permission to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. They were weary and did not see the joy of their new freedom that was right in front of them. Now, to be fair, that section we heard this morning is somewhat confusing to human understanding. It says, "Lo, your king comes to you, triumphant, victorious." And this gives us the picture of spectacular judgment on enemies. King, triumphant, victorious. But Zechariah's further description of this victory as being humble and not on a war horse, not even on a donkey, but on the smallest riding creature, a colt, does not live up to the expectations of the people. It's less than they hope for. But there we have it. The victory that is prophesied by Zechariah is not a military victory, but rather a victory and success in becoming humble. This humility is what brings an end to war and instills peace. Now, we learn more about the humility in the reading from Romans that begins, "I do not do what I want, and I do the very thing I hate." On our own, we are lost in the mud of self-centeredness. We are called to humbly rely on God. This is why Jesus refers to the people as children in the marketplace, and not much has changed in the 500 years since they've returned to Jerusalem from exile. They are still confused, aimless, wandering, lost, relying on themselves rather than God. Even John the Baptist, who baptized Jesus, and he heard the voice of God saying, "This is my beloved Son." Even John asked Jesus if he was the one sent by God. These questions must have wearied Jesus. Now, the other time Jesus speaks of children in our reading this morning is to give thanks to God that God's will has been shared, not with the wise and conniving, but with those who approach their relationship with God in childlike humility, awe, and wonder. And this is where we find our hope today. We too are weary. We're weary of protests happening which result in little or no change. We're weary of frontline workers who are applauded and then abused by their employers by having their wages cut. Maybe we're even weary of holding ourselves above other people. We're wearied of abuse of creation, habitat being destroyed, air, water, land being polluted. We're weary about rules for public safety being disregarded in community and on beach areas and other places of summer fun. It is wearisome. Where then do we find hope for peace? I've discovered a hymn in the Peace and Justice section of the ELW Cranberry Hymnal. It's number 726, and you may have heard it at interchurch services. It is called "Light Dawns on a Weary World," and it moves toward an answer to the question, where do we find peace? The hymn uses praises from another prophet, from Isaiah, who describes the time of peace as a time when even the trees will clap in joy as all the world in awe and wonder echoes with peace and shalom. The hymn describes the light of God coming to the world as the eyes which are opened to recognize every human being as a child of God, when all eyes begin to see people's dignity. The hymn describes love and hope coming to a world that feeds hungry hearts, both with food and with hope in the truth of Jesus Christ's saving grace, and where creatures and creation are respected and renewed. These words are the yoke of Jesus, the yoke which is easy and light, the yoke which brings us peace. Be drawn to the things that bring peace to your heart. In this way, we can walk with Jesus toward justice and abundance for all. Jesus arrived in a humble stable, entered the city on a small colt, and victoriously was humbled to be filled with the presence of God. We can walk humbly, setting aside self and being filled with the love and gentle spirit of God. Then, as Isaiah promised, as Zechariah promised, weapons will be broken, hills and mountains will break forth in singing, maybe corn will even pop from the skies. In humility, we can approach life with the yoke of Jesus and the awe of a child, going out in joy, being led forth in peace. Then all the world in wonder will echo shalom. May it be so.